Kamala Harris has picked Minnesota Governor Tim Walz. Minnesota Governor Tim Walz. That's right. Not Josh Shapiro, but Tim Walz. Let's talk about why.
Know more about his past policy? Here's a look back at Walz's career and background.
I am the chair of the Democratic Governors Association.
Tim Walz was born in the spring of 1964 and grew up in small-town Nebraska.
Look, I went to a high school, 400 people in the town, 24 kids in my class.
He joined the National Guard as a teenager using the GI Bill to pay tuition at Nebraska's Chadron State College. Walz would serve in the National Guard for the next 24 years. After graduating, he taught in China for a year. Then he returned to Nebraska, where he began his career as a school teacher. In 1994, he married fellow school teacher Gwen Walz. They moved to Mankato in the mid-90s, where he began teaching and coaching football at Mankato West High School.
What did you love about coaching?
Oh, I think everything about it, certainly being with the kids.
His first serious venture into politics was in 2004 when he was a volunteer for John Kerry's presidential campaign. He was the first elected to Congress in 2006 for Minnesota's first congressional district. It was a big upset. He beat the Republican incumbent Gil Gutnick by more than 5 percentage points. Walz would serve in Congress for the next 12 years.
Only thing I heard from the people out here is we're going to rebuild, and they said we're not looking for handouts, we're just looking for a hand up.
He ran for governor in 2018, beating Republican Jeff Johnson by more than 11 points.
I will be your governor just as much as I will be for the people in this room.
The defining moments of his first term came in a tumultuous year, 2020. First came the COVID pandemic. Walz supported major lockdowns, with restaurants temporarily closing and schools going remote.
And I'm trying the best I can to give the data based on the science, pushing the envelope as close as I can to opening things up.
Then on May 25th, George Floyd was killed by Minneapolis police. Massive demonstrations turned violent, and for 3 days, fires raged, destroying entire blocks of the Twin Cities.
This is not grieving, and this is not making a statement that we fully acknowledge needs to be fixed. This is life-threatening, dangerous.
After 3 days, Walz called in the National Guard. He would receive intense criticism for not bringing in the Guard sooner. In the fall of 2022 came the Feeding Our Future scandal. At $250 million, it was the largest pandemic fraud scheme in the country. Walz would maintain his administration did everything it could once it learned of the fraud. Despite escalating criticism, Walz easily won re-election in 2022.
We're not going to see things that Minnesotans need be stalled. We're going to see things that are able to move forward.
2023 would prove a banner year for the governor. He was part of a DFL trifecta.
Josh Shapiro was seen as the favorite for Kamala Harris because he is currently the governor of the state of Pennsylvania, where he led Joe Biden by over 15 points in the last election. However, Josh Shapiro does come with a bit of baggage, according to reports. That baggage looks like things like there was an employee at one point who accused him of not handling a sexual assault case inside of his office properly. He was not the person involved. He was not directly involved, but he was the person who had oversight to manage that incident. And he didn't do anything wrong, but it did take a few months for the investigation to take place and for the accuser to be dismissed from his role. So that is something that you don't want to have to explain when you have such momentum in the campaign. He also came under fire, or is coming under fire, for his stance on Israel. He's seen as very conservative on that, very pro-Israel, and which is a concern because we don't want to alienate Gen Z or people who are pro-Palestine and they're, and are against their oppression, obviously. So those things were factors that helped make the decision. Also, the main factor, aside from that, is that Kamala Harris specifically said that she wanted someone who she had a good chemistry with, someone who would not be intimidated or unwilling to follow the lead of a woman, not just a woman, but a black woman. And also someone whose ambitions wouldn't overshadow her campaign and her policy agenda. So as we can tell, Josh Shapiro has climbed the ranks pretty quickly. He is very, 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 very charismatic, but he's also known in the state of Pennsylvania as being very, very, very aggressive and very, very politically ambitious. And that kind of energy may not bode well for someone who's right now in the limelight and having her moment as the first female black presidential nominee. So with all that in mind, I completely understand why this election has come to Tim Walz. Now, the question is, will Tim Walz energize and provide more excitement? And I believe with Tim Walz's, candor and his ability to connect with voters from all demographics, and of course, his very funny zingers that he does, especially coining the term weird for Republicans and J.D. Vance. He's been using that term for apparently years, and it just became a thing. But he's able to connect with people in a way that is really going to be helpful for the Midwest Blue Wall. So I do understand that selection process. Now, apparently he did not get notified until this morning. It looks like Kamala Harris was, apparently their relationship as far as the chemistry and everything started the day that Joe Biden said he was going to step down. They were in talks at that point, but she had not made a decision. She literally vetted up to six different people were fully vetted to be the VP nominee, the VP pick, but she ended up landing on Tim Walz this morning. So this is big news, folks. Tim Walz, I'm not mad about it. I don't think it's going to bring more young people in, but I do think it's going to definitely galvanize those Obama voters who did end up voting for Trump. I think he may appeal to those folks, and we need everything on the margin. So I support this choice. I think it's a good idea. It makes sense. It's not Josh Shapiro, who I preferred, but Tim Walz is still a good choice, folks. So Tim Walz comes with over a decade of House experience, being a House rep, and that experience is going to bode well for him as the VP, because he's able to go and have those conversations behind the scenes with lawmakers to get things done. That's the same asset that Joe Biden was when he was with Barack Obama. So you got someone who not only has over a decade of experience working in Congress, but he also is the governor of a Midwest state, comes from a small town in Nebraska, giving you small town Midwest vibes. So I think it's going to be a good way to kind of bridge that gap between coastal elites and small town vibes, okay? So we have a coastal elite who's at the top of the ticket and a Midwesterner as her running mate. It all makes sense to me. Let's get behind Kamala Harris and Tim Walz.